Hey guys, this is President, and I want to do a breakdown of my of my brand new song "On My Way" from my new EP that just dropped. Um, and to give you a little backstory on the song, this song probably took me about a year to make or to finish because I made the instrumental and all of the basic tracks that you hear now um originally a year ago, but I felt like I didn't have the song or the right song to put on the instrumental where it felt like this big song was worth releasing. So I tried a bunch of different things, tried recording a lot of different songs, and it didn't seem right. And my first album, my second album came along, and it just didn't feel like it was going anywhere. So I put it on the shelf. But while I was making this EP, I needed another song to kind of round out the five song structure. And I opened this project again and just started writing down lyrics and recording vocals. And I ended up making the song that's here. I kind of stripped it back into this more like ambient indie folk kind of sound with a little bit of like pop sensibility. I record the vocals and then I kind of built out the instrumental from there um, until it turned into this huge folk rock, pop rock kind of song. With a lot of electronic elements, a lot of acoustic elements. But yeah, I'm really proud of what me and my team kind of came up with. Charlie helped a lot, especially on informing the bass and drums and like electric guitars, just the way that everything kind of moved, especially in the bridge. Make sure that everything was big but also concealed. Um, so let's kind of get into the project, show you just like all the production layers and building it out, and then all the mixing stuff that I did to it. And then I'll show you the final track, maybe break down the lyrics. The first thing that we see is the acoustic guitar. Um, this acoustic guitar was um, originally really dry. I think I just had like a little bit of like room stuff on it. That was about it. And then, so this is what the acoustic guitar originally. Oh, I forgot. Um, anyway, let me just show you it with all of this, just because the reverbs are kind of like making the sound. I guess like without the reverbs, you can't hear the guitar at all, which is kind of weird, but that's just how it worked out. So, really, the only things that I added was some high end frequencies around 1500 just to give it some sheen. And then I added a delay pedal on the bright setting because I really wanted it to sound like a bright guitar. And then Ram, which is the brightest reverb I have. With an EQ, making sure that's really like mid focused, honestly. And then boosting some silver, and then a side change so that the reverb didn't take away from the clarity of the guitar. So that's what it sounds like. So after that, another thing that was like in the original project that I wanted to keep was this synth melody. Um, and this melody is very poppy. Charlie said that it sounds like the intro to like a video game song, which I think is kind of funny because at the end of the day, it's kind of true. Um, yeah. So for this one, I used the simpler time synth. And it sounds very boring on its own. I really had to spruce it up, but this is what it sounds like. Just no plugins. And then what I did to that was an EQ to really boost the mids, um, a tape delay, reverb, echo pedal, a little bit of like a gritty saturation. This is really like where the distortion comes from. And then an exciter to again just like boost some of those high frequencies. And then this long chain of stuff that really it just makes like a very washed out reverb. You have the original reverb, which is a short room reverb, and then you stack on top of that reverb an echo, a tape delay, and then finally a long form reverb that really washes everything out. And now it sounds like this. You can hear how the reverb isn't just like a tail, but the reverb is now an echo and a delay that kind of like spills out, which is really cool. I think that's I don't know, it just does a lot for the song, really adding that atmosphere. And then I have this pad that kind of builds out starting the first verse. It sounds like this. Nothing too crazy, just something to anchor everything down. And honestly, like the only real thing that I did to it was the tremolo. So it kind of slowly bounces from ear to ear. But other than that, I didn't really touch it. Um, so you have kind of all those things coming into the first verse, um, and then coming into the chorus, you'll have a drum machine kind of coming in. Me and Charlie recorded the drums on the 4th of July, um, and I showed him like this song that I was working on for the EP, and I was like, hey, like we need to add this to like the group of songs. What do you think? And he heard it, and immediately he was like, I can do those programmed drums like way better. So he hops up on the drums and he just says like hit record and I'll play something. And in 2 takes, he gives me this drum kit performance, and then after that I was like, well, now we need to add a drum machine. So this is my like drum machine performance that I kind of gave on the spot. It's the tuned down Lindrum drum machine from Logic, and then all I did was really just add some mid, take out that like woofiness in the kick that no one really needs, and then just taking out all the lows or all the highs, and then it kind of just and then take it to this part. Um, and one thing I did like in snare processing, where is it? There it is. So the snare wasn't hitting enough, so I add this 2BQ for punchy snare preset, and then kind of like just put up the drive. And I did this EQ that really boosts the low end, and then I did this chroma glow that really adds just some nice distortion, and I didn't really add any reverb. To me, you don't really need to add a reverb to a snare like a whole lot. If anything, just for like subtle room. But yeah, and then I kind of on the hi-hats, I added a little bit of clip distortion just because I feel like, especially like electronic hi-hats, they really like um to be clip distorted just because it adds this like metally sheen to it. And let me show you just before and after. And I just like that little fuzziness that it puts in. Um, and then moving on to some of the pads that I kind of introduce here. Um, there's this secondary pad that I bring in just to kind of double up with this pad. And it really just sounds like a gust of wind when you hear it like in the mix. When you don't hear it in the mix, it sounds like a dying jet plane. But that's what that sounds like. And then I doubled up this like pipe pad that sounds like birds chirping. Um, and I added a tremolo to this one that's mono, so it's just like this, kind of stutter stepping. And then this one, I have a tremolo that's going like this. So those two stacked together is this. So I have those pads going, and then kind of like showing the whole pad section together. Sounds like. And I just want something. I want this song to be very atmospheric. In a lot of ways, very electronic, which is something that I don't do a lot on this EP. But I mean, I'll do this more when I do my reaction, or talk about this more when I do my reaction for the EP. I'll kind of show you like what my production influences were on this EP. But yeah, just I wanted some atmosphere definitely on this track. When we get into the chorus, I have this synth going. This synth is from the first production, and it's just it sounds like aftermath, I guess, of like an explosion. And it's just following the basic chords of the acoustic guitar. And I like that the synth naturally baked into it is a tremolo. So kind of like dun, dun. That's really cool. And I didn't do any like processing to it. I just let it kind of sit right there. It's called Escape the Grid from Logic. So you have that synth, you have this synth coming through, and then this is another like atmospheric synth that comes in during the second verse, and it sounds like it's supposed to be a perk loop, but it really just sounds like dead birds. And if you look, it's pushed like slightly out of time with the project. So I like that it kind of like it doesn't go with the rest of the song. It kind of just like sits there. And then let me show you in context with the track. So yeah, so it's kind of just sitting there, kind of doing its own thing, and then once you take out the bird synth, it sounds like this. Somebody said if you want to live. So you have that, and then honestly, that's really it for this. The synths, the pads, and everything. Let me show you the bass that we've got going on. We just did like a synth bass for most of it, and then we brought in bass guitar that I played myself. Coming into the bridge section, yeah. Um, Let me kind of show you what this sounds like. I just used the Crunchy Pop synth bass, which is the synth bass that I use for everything. And then for processing on the bass, um, these are um, all of their processing, and then all I do for my processing is just boost the highs, boost the mids where I see necessary, like what kind of tone I want from it, and then boost these highs like right here so that you can really hear like the string pick. And then just muffle it up a little bit. I do it to 60, not just to 40 like I would the kick, just because it makes extra space for the kick to kind of live in this range, and then the bass doesn't take up so much frequency range until it hits like right here. And you can see that when I play the bass. Yeah, see. It makes it kind of forces it to live in that 60 to 100 range, which is great because if I can show you the kick, um, yeah, if I show you the kick, um, let me just like pull up a EQ. And you can see it's living much more in this area right here, while the bass lives in this area. And you can see how they don't really get in the way of each other, but they really like work together. And yeah, so that's really nice. That's what I do for like all of my basses. Um, and then you come into the second verse, and this pace comes in to kind of highlight the distorted keyboard that comes in, and I'll kind of show you that keyboard in a little bit, but it just really highlights it because the distorted keyboard like, and then the bass is kind of like the low end thing that kind of like to then kind of accent that and really add some impact and emotion to that, and that just sounds like this. And only plays one note. I believe it's a C. Yeah, or no, it's an F. It's an F. Okay. Yeah. So you play, and that goes in, and that's a splice synth bass called Nasty Tines. I don't know. I don't make the names. I just use the presets. Um, that's that, and then you kind of just put in a low end boost to do that high pass I already talked about, and then I did a spreader. And I like to do this especially on basses that aren't the main bass because the bass is always mono. But I like to do something interesting where, like, on a bass guitar or a secondary synth bass that comes in, I like to spread it. And let me show you that on the bass guitar too. So it kind of just spreads them out, and it gives it just like a different flavor than the regular bass. It really just like um, what's the word? Kind of distinguishes them, I guess. And then for my basic spreader, I just use the drum room enhancer, and then I mess with the rate. I turn the intensity all the way up, the delay all the way down because I want it to be like they're hitting at the same time. And then the mix to 100. And I do that like all across the record. Anytime there's a big bridge, there's always going to be a regular bass, a bass guitar, and a synth bass in every single one. And I kind of just frequency shift them so that they don't get in the way of all the frequencies but kind of work together. And then on the bass guitar and the synth bass, I'll always spread it just to give it a different flavor. And you can see that all across the EP. But yeah, I'll for this bass guitar, I didn't I recorded this in another project, and I used the processing settings from the psychedelic rock synth bass. Oh, I can't show you. And I just copied it over, and then I just put in the spreader, and then um I really just wanted something to come in here during the bridge, but I didn't want like an electric guitar to come in. I wanted it to be something different that could really build, that could really add this like drive. And the only way you can do that is with the pick attack of a bass guitar. So just, you pick up a bass guitar, put on a bunch of distortion, and then you kind of just dum 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 dum, and then the bridge comes in, so it sounds like this. And then you go into those intermittent little picks. But yeah, and it sounds great in context with the track. Here's kind of the build, and you can hear that bass guitar just adding that drive and intensity coming right into the bridge. Now I'm ready to move on. Move on. So yeah, and that's really what I wanted. Um, I'll talk about the vocals later. Let's get into the pianos because we haven't really talked about those, the keyboards and pianos. Um, the main piano sound that I use for the whole EP is the grandma's piano from Logic, and then I just put a tape cassette at the top of the plug-in chain, and I did that for um, every grandma's piano across the whole EP. I did this basic chain. Um, what does is reduce noise because the noise really just adds nothing. Um, you add a bit of saturation, you add some wow and some flutter, which really just gives it this like tape flutter to it. Um, and then you do the low pass. I do the low pass around um, 9 to 10,000 just because it takes out some of those high things that would make it sound high quality, and then kind of just fits it into this box of like analog gear. Um, and this is kind of like the main piano. You see how the quality just shifts down and it gets a little bit darker. And I think it has a nice feel where it's not a felt piano. You can tell it's like a worn out like grand piano, but at the same time it has the qualities of a felt piano that make it sound so emotional and soft, which is exactly what you want in a song like this. And let me show you in contact with the track. Lost my way, but I found home. Time wasted on no one's love. So yeah, it just adds that emotion, and then coming into the instrumental in the second verse, I have this clavinet, a keyboard, which this is from the original production, and it just sounds like this. Um, and then I just did like a compressor. I did an echo so that it kind of just like fades out. Um, and then an EQ that really just muffles up the sound. And then I did a slight reverb. And I wanted to sit under the piano and kind of like add this attack to the piano, or this like acousticness to the piano that like a felt piano doesn't have. And yeah, I think it does its job well. And then I have these atmospheric piano staccatos that are doing dun 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 dun, and I kind of pitched those up. I think the piano is at C2, but this one I bumped it up to like C4, and then I just added a bunch of reverb, and that one sounds like this. And for that, I just use a basic grand piano. Um, um, and then getting into the second verse, you have this distorted mellotron, which I got this sound idea from Lizzie McAlpine's older album, where at the beginning they have this part where they used a mellotron to do this, like it sounds like a ship horn at the very end of Elevator, the first track. It's just like uh, um so I kind of wanted to highlight that, so I used a distorted mellotron, and then you mix it in with this bass, and you kind of get this. And that bass just adds a lot of foundation and hit to the mellotron to where it really works and it really highlights the track. And for this, I just used a bunch of delay and reverb. I used a spreader, the same exact settings as the bass guitar, and I used a spectral gate at the beginning of my chain. And let me show you before and after, like all of these plugins. That I just used some distortion pedals. And then let me show you in context of the track, if I may. Because it's very interesting. It adds a new layer to the track for sure. Somebody said if you want to live, you'll have to take pride and get in your head. I feel lost if anyone tells me who I am because it's up to you. So yeah, it just adds so much. And it's a different production choice from like productions I've done in the past. But I feel like this EP was a lot of just like you take an acoustic guitar, you take a vocal, and a good song, and you take like a piano, and then the rest of it is really up to you to make something that no one's ever heard before. And that's what I really tried to do. And then, masking an acoustic guitar vocal song and stuff like felt pianos, synths, atmosphere, big drums, and then it kind of turns into this like folk pop kind of piece that no one like that really grabs people's attention, I think. And this I'm really proud of how this turned out, especially because if it didn't work, this song would not be the song that it is. But I'm really proud of that. Um, and then getting into the synths as everything's building, um, not much really changes, honestly. Um, Same thing with the pads, bass, um, drums, nothing much. So I guess let's really just touch on the electric guitars that are going throughout the first part of the song and then hit the chorus. Um, I used some guitar licks that Charlie did on his electric guitar and then kind of um, pan them to the side and then just did a bunch of reverb work and it sounds like this. Let me show you in context with the track. Times since I chose to stay, the chain holding me down lost its way. Time wasted on no. I just like the little ear candy that does like not nothing crazy, but just some good ear candy for me. Um, and then getting into the what is this? second verse, I introduced this new guitar that's playing hard left, and that sounds like this. And what it is really just some like Ebo work and some like just playing the guitar. And then I didn't really run it through anything, but really low in the mix. So nothing crazy, it's just like a little thing. Um, so now we could get into the build, and this is where it starts to get exciting. Um, Let me show you some of the synths first. You already know this one. Um, Here's I call it the 80s pop synth. It's a synth that my producer sent over. He kind of had an idea, and obviously he doesn't live where I live, so everything he sends over is gonna be like an audio file. But yeah, so he sent this over, and it was kind of cool. And then I just did some like mix work on it. Weird. So and then I just made it like huge, and it sounds like this. I don't know why it's overloading like this. Kind of insane. So yeah, that's a nice like atmospheric slash like melody piece that's like really cool. And then I have this synth right here. So it's just like da 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 da. And that's just like a splice preset, um, brass pad. Um, yeah, you have that, and then you have these solos right here, and this is what this sounds like. This really makes this song. I don't know what's going on with the thing. Um, full powers would be. Anyway, so it's just these right here. So it's just this synth that's the same synth sound as this one, but it's just da 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 or something like that. I don't know the exact notes. I can't really sing it for you. But and then you have this one, but as it's going through, then I add this harmony to it that is an octave above. So it becomes like really high, and then it kind of just like pokes through the mix a lot, and it's very like a triumphant part to this song, I think. um that's kind of all the synths. And then you have obviously these risers, but as the bridge goes through, you have this these impacts that are constantly going from in both ears. Let me hear this. On this track. I don't know what's going on. What? Oh, that's more like it. Alright, looks like it's working now. Anyway, yeah, so let me show you the synth solos now, since I can play it, because it's harder to explain. Why? Should be working fine. Anyway. Yeah, so you kind of heard those risers. You already know what's going on with the bass. Let me see if I can show you Charlie's drum kit performance alone. And he did this in a couple takes. It was really good. Alright, now let me show you the drums before this thing breaks again. Yeah, so this is the performance. Just put that. Anyway, so that's the basic performance, and then I separated the kick and the snare and hi hat, and then for the kick, um, I just boosted the low end, turned it down a little bit, or turned it up a little bit, possibly. Oh, they're the same. Hmm. Oh, I know what I did. I just wanted a little bit less high end in the kick, and then for this one, I did Bro, I don't know what I did here. But either way, I did a dual compression setup with the classic drums and then the drum mix. And then you go through there, and then you go to just the drum kit like overall. And I did another compressor that's taken off about 1.5 to 2 dB of compression. And then on the actual drum thing, I have another compressor for the drum mix preset. And what I'm doing is I'm compressing on the track, and then um, I'm compressing on the track, and I'm doing parallel compression on another track that has like a glue compressor, and then I go to another track and I'm doing another parallel compression, and that kind of like glues everything together, but it also over compresses the drum kit to the point where it just snaps. It really hits. Um, Kind of what I was going for. Um, so there's the drum kit, and then you have um, all of the percussion. You have a tambourine shake. You have another tambourine shake, and then you have a shaker, and the shaker sounds a little weird, and that's because I ran it through a like a short reflection room reverb, and that's the only thing on this chain is this, so you can turn it on and off and kind of see what it sounds like. Just kind of puts it in a different space, and I honestly really like that. And then I did like a cheesy 80s like drum machine clap. It's very like cheesy, honestly. And then here's a topper. And then let me show you like all of the percussion and drums together. So there's that. And again, for the drum bus, for me, it's all about just compression and really just gluing everything together. Um, got all of that. Let me show you the synth solos now that it seems like it's working. Um, and This is just a very cool. And obviously, you might be thinking, like, what's all of that fuzz? Well, I put a couple of distortion and fuzz pedals on this. Like, I duplicated this, put it out. A couple of distortion and fuzz um, pedals. And then I did a spreader, which is the same spreader I do for everything that I spread out stereo wise. And it kind of just added this like new layer of like cool distortion. This is what it sounds like. Yeah, so you can see how it really changes the sound. Um, and then you have this synth melody, which I wasn't able to show you. Sounds like that. Just a little atmosphere piece, and then this synth melody again. And that just plays throughout the entire bridge and really fills up some space. Um, for the pianos, I did a bunch of keyboards. I did a whirly, and it kind of plays off of the piano really well. Very much so like a pop kind of sound. Then you have the distorted mellotron, the clav, the piano plinks. Um, and yeah, so that's kind of like the piano section, the key section. And then getting into the guitars, you have this electric guitar strum. It's a recorded acoustic guitar that I ran through like a really trashy amp. And then we have this electric guitar strum. And that really adds just some atmosphere. And then we have this little like guitar melody. That again I ran through a trashy amp. And then Charlie's guitar solo. And this one's incredible. And then he recorded a double to that. That sounds like this. So you have both of those, and then the whole electric guitar section sounds like this. So yeah, and that's really like all the tracks for the entire song. And then let me just walk you through the vocals, which I haven't even touched yet. These vocals, sorry, I'm tired. These vocals I recorded before work, and these let me show you them like completely dry, like nothing on anything, and then I'll kind of walk you through it. It's been a while since I felt okay again. Been a long time since I chose to stay. The chain holding me down. So you have that, and then let me kind of show you my. It's been a while since I felt okay again. Been a long time since I chose to stay. The chain holding me down lost its way. I'm free, but I'm still in pain. So you have that, and then of course we have the doubled up vocals that sound like this. I chose to stay. The chain holding me down lost its way. I'm free, but I'm still in pain. I like the way that the vocals sound very bassy and subby, and they really just fill in that extra space. Lost my way, but I found home. The unison is crazy though. Time wasted on no one's love. It's like it's the same vocal every time, you know? Waited in the pouring rain. Now I'm ready to move on. So yeah, so that's really cool. And then let me just walk you through the lead vocal plugin chain, just so you can get an idea. Taking out all the bad frequencies, um, really taking out all like the woofy frequencies that no one needs, that really just cloud up a mix, and then bringing in some high end. Um, Again, I like this plugin because it is a why is that now? I like this plugin because it is a an analog EQ, but also very visual. But everything, like everything that um you do on it, you know, every move you make is very subtle, and that's kind of the way this EQ is. Everything sounds very subtle, so it's a good EQ to put at the top of your chain just to subtly clean it up. You know, do what you want before you really get into things like compression and de-essing. So you do that. I did some slight pitch correction. I didn't think it really needed like a whole lot. I just put some on there to catch like the really bad notes. You have this compressor, which is my vocal compressor. Um, the Buster SE, which I like to use on vocals just to really bring out some analog warmth. The de-esser, pretty basic de-esser. And then this channel EQ, and this EQ is very much so very drastic in moves. So just boosting some high end, just making some more cuts, and then just doing some stuff in the subs to make sure it's not just too much. And then the reverb I'm using is this short room reflections reverb, which I put on the shaker, and then this one Raum, um, and then kind of the same thing with the doubles, but they have no like reverbs or delays on them. And then on the overall chain, I did another EQ just to catch anything else that I heard. Another pitch corrector, another de-esser, and then another round of compression to kind of finish things off, and then an echo for like everything, so that everything kind of fits in this space. Um, so yeah, um, that's really it. So let me just play you the whole track all the way through, and then just see where we go from there. Been a while since I felt okay again. Been a long time since I chose to stay. The chain holding me down lost its way. I'm free, but I'm still in pain. Lost my way, but I found home. Time wasted on no one's love. Waited in the pouring rain. Now I'm ready to move on. Move on.
Time wasted on no one's love.